Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of Real Talk with Yogi Ji. We're going to be entering some more conversation. We'll be answering a lot of your questions that you've sent through. So I hope you're excited for today's show. Please join me in welcoming Yogi Ji to today's show. Welcome, Yogi Ji.
Sat karta.
Sat karta hai. I hope you're enjoying yourself during lockdown.
It's productive. Yes, indeed.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And you ready for today? We're going to take some of the questions that came in from some of the viewers, but I'll come to those in the second half. I wanted to address that this month is Mental Health Awareness Month, and mental health is generally a topic in the Punjabi and Sikh community, even in the South Asian community, that isn't so well discussed. And I'd like you to help us understand, why is there so much stigma around mental health in the South Asian community?
I personally believe it's a big issue for humanity, regardless of cultural or racial profile of humans, Southeast Asians or Punjabis or Indians. But I think it is a conflict within us that we as humans are suffering with. If you look into the plants, if you look into animals, do they suffer from a bad episode when it comes to, do they get stressed? Do they get anxious? Yes, indeed. So every living being will have to go through either the low or either the high side of their contemplation, their thinking patterns. So, but it becomes a problem. It becomes a very big issue when it is not addressed, when we don't know what we are going through. Then how are we going to go through when we have no idea what's happening to us? Why is it happening to us? We're not being able to diagnose these things. Of course, it will create a fear. Unknown is always not very comfortable. When we don't know what is happening to us, what possibilities will definitely make us anxious. And if we can't shake those things already happened to us and created scars, and we don't know how to address those issues, it will cause a depression. And if I look back into the life of my master, Sahib Sri Guru Nanak Sahib, who created this revolution for humanity 550 years ago, when he came about in started to put this program of mental health betterment for humanity. If I look into, there is a one word from Gurmukhi, which is Gaviye. It means in English that expression of emotional state, that conversation between amongst us. And another word he uses back to back is called suniye. And that means is a listening to that state. So he equips us to not just elaborate our emotional state, not just express our emotional state, but he put emphasis on the developing this skill, how to listen to these things. If you can listen, then only then you will know some possibilities. If you are a learner, if you are a seeker, mean Sikh, and you are learning this art, then you will know how to diagnose. He will coach you. But mental health is a natural thing. It can become curse if you don't know. If you don't master it, of course, it will become a disaster. But what if you know what to do? As we did talk about it, making the right decision at the wrong time. Wrong time is when you're stressed, when you're if I use this analogy, like, create a straight line, and if one side goes up, then there is no balance. Like if you are anxious, then your stress levels are high, or if you're depressed, then your stress levels are, they're taking you to a lower level. Now, in the both scenarios, you have to do different things. But if you don't know where your levels are, are you anxious or are you depressed? If you can't diagnose, what can you do? So these months, sadly, we reach to these points that we have mental health weeks, we have mental health months, that people need to be reminded that, hey, look within, contemplate, and do something, and don't just suffer in silence. Don't ignore these things. Um, these months are created, these little points throughout the years, in West created, so people are looking within themselves. But Guru Nanak Sahib done, my master did this hundreds of years ago. And if you look into, I'm just going to give you a very quick example of, there is a community which become a society and became a nation called Sikhs. A lot of Punjabis in there, and throughout the world they have gurdwaras. In these rough times, these demanding times, what they did, they opened the langar for everybody. Although it's always open for anybody who's hungry, anybody who needs food. But this time they went like even to deliver to those houses where there was no food, and they, that compassion, that giving thing came in, because Guru Nanak Sahib embedded that system into how we think. How we think is just an amazing thing. And Guru Nanak Sahib's blessing, um, having some forms of his education still with us, um, made us able and capable to do the right thing in this demanding and this pandemic time. So this is how you make the right decision at the wrong time. So communities need to equip themselves. They need to put themselves into situation where they think, can we diagnose what's happening to us? If you don't know what's happening to you, how are you going to know what's happening to your society? So
Right.
yes, this month is dedicated.
So, sorry to interrupt you there. Um,
No problem.
I agree with what you're saying, but my question is, um, what you're talking about is beautiful, and it's an ideal, but it's not something that is common in our community. So if this is what Guru Nanak talks about and encourages us to be in connection with our expression of being able to listen and understand and express what we're feeling, there is a huge culture of silence which is embedded into the whole South Asian community. Where does that come from then?
It comes from, again, ignorance, and which also created a division and arrogance also. Division mean there was a suppression. That means the suppression will bring imbalance into community. Like, for example, caste system in Southeast Asia's this region, India especially, um, where Brahminic system says there are Brahmins, there are Kshatris, there are Vash, and Shudras. Means there are people who are very well educated, and Brahmins, they understand everything, and they are the coach, they are the teachers, they are the people who will be responsible to educate everything on this planet. Then it comes Kshatri, that the warrior clan which will defend the nation. They are the rulers, but they are under the Brahmins. Then it comes the Vash, so the business community, how everything is running around, from little thing to big businesses are under the finance of the whole nation is under their hand. But they therefore they will be answerable to Kshatriya, they will be answerable to Brahman. Brahman is the ruler behind everything, and then there is a Shudra which have no right. They they are number four. They are the last area, and they will be suppressed. They will be used as a slaves wherever, whatever the wishes of any of those, like Kshatriya or Brahmana, or but then it led into the caste system within these things. The Brahmins had many different castes, and Kshatriya, and it created a collision amongst them. Now, if we look back into um, to the caste system in Punjab, we see clearly two definitive lines between um, the landlords and people who work on those lands. And uh, although they both, according to Brahminic system, are Shudra, they are in a fourth category, but the collision is a big. And here, I think the revolution happened when Guru Nanak Sahib came in. He called one which was a Shudra, and Guru Nanak was born into according to those assessment in Kshatriya clan, in those brackets. But then embracing by Mardana and calling him brother was a huge revolution. I mean, that was big no in a community of Brahmins or Kshatriyas. And then Guru Gobind Singh, when he says, Manas ki jaat sab hai, ek hai pehchan bo, mean we are humans. That is the only thing we are. We're not white. We're not black and brown. Do not put yourself in a cage that you are a Christian or Buddhist, or you're human first. And understand that strength, that gift, because not recognizing who we are, what we are, and lowering our aim will cause a stress, and our society is a suffering from this. There are issues, but those are the issues to be addressed. We are humans, and we have been given this capacity. All we need to do, Jasvir Kaurji, is educate ourselves. We need to seek from those who found the answers. It's never late. When you need help, call for it. Like the things our viewers, they sent us a lot of questions, and maybe there was some confusion in their head, in their psyche. I'm not saying I have answers for every single question of yours, but what I'm saying to share with you that if I don't have an answer, we will together find the answer. But we need to start this conversation. We need to open up, open our hearts, and accept our reality, and then it will take us to our issues, that what is wrong happening with us.
Thank you, Yogiji. I appreciate you bringing in the wisdom from, from our ancestors, from Guru Nanak, and you brought in a different topic of the caste system and how that affects things. And I think for me, the correlation of the two things that you've just shared comes with intergenerational trauma that we don't acknowledge. So we can inherit behaviors from our parents, and from generation to generation. When we pass on broken patterns, this is what happens where we are now. So I don't know many Punjabi families. Okay, so if we just narrow it down from the South Asian community, just to Punjabi families who talk openly about mental health with their children, with each other, or are even able to go and seek help. There's this huge notion of shame around it as well. I know when I was growing up, there was a lot of people, like families, who would secretly take their child to see, like, either they would call the 5 people, the Panj Pyare from the local Gurdwara, to come to their house and do like some sort of a blessing ceremony, or they would go to a peer or to a pandit to do a havan or to do some form of a almost like an exorcism to help this person in their family who they think has been possessed by a spirit, um, like jadoo tuna and stuff like that, right? But it's actually the fact that that person's struggling with their emotions, and there wasn't much education around this in the generation of, like the people who were parents in the 80s and 90s. I didn't see much of that. So what's your opinion about that?
I think it's everywhere. It is not fair to label Punjabis like this. From this, the shamanic system, and the church priest is called in for a similar sort of things. I think it is a belief system also. We get by with what we know.
Right.
When that's the issue was in even my master's time, Guru Nanak Ji's time, issue was the people didn't know any better. So we have Sri Guru Granth Sahib, we have a source, we have been given the meters and codes, formulas. One who is happy with their suffering, one who doesn't want to come out, one who finds it easy to call somebody from their temple or from their mosque, from their, and give them some money and ask them to do some ardas or do some part puja, and um, which is by all means is fine, but if there is a purpose behind, is it clear to one who's doing it and one who's receiving it?
Mm-hmm.
Puja, the purpose of part in Sikhs, like in my world, as a seeker from the Guru, I have been given lesson. So I have to go through that lesson and do my notes, make it relatable to me. So my fog is disappeared. So I configure the what is not clear between my mind. If we are talking about psyche, if we're talking about mental health, what is the core issue? What do we call mental health? Is when mind is a logical side, angle, dominant part, the mind does not agree or cannot configure what the creative brain is saying, the soul is saying, and there's a collision, there's a fog, there's an unknown, and that leads one thing to another. Society makes it, yes, they play a role, but Jasvir Kaur, we play 99.9%. It depends to us that what do we do with the situation? Do we seek, and do we go and ask for help? Was it happening back in when I was growing up in India? Yes, it was happening. If I will do a kirtan, a part in a gurdwara, or a morning or evening, I will do something like this. Um, there will people, elderly people, they will come to me and they say, "Oh, this is going wrong. What do you think?" I mean, they think because I am regularly in touch with the Bani, therefore I will have a solution. But when I look now back into that, I think it started with the one who will meditate, one who will sit down every evening, every morning, and be in a contemplative thing. They are in a better balance to be able to think for the solution. So we reach those people, and we present with our problem to them, and we hope that they maybe can give us a viewpoint that how they will address this situation. It started something from this sort of situation. It ended up into a blind following. I don't want to use word blind faith, because faith can't be blind. So seeker, a Sikh, a student of life, will have to understand that those skills of Suniye, as Babaji Guru Nanak Sahib, my master Guru Nanak Sahib says, suniye, mean the skill. Once you will obtain this skill, suniye, the listening skills, dukh,
Mhm.
paap ka nas, all the sins and suffering, whatever you call it, whatever is bugging you, you will have a clarity in your vision.
Thank you for explaining that as well, Yogiji. I'm looking more closer to home. I'm wondering why there's a disconnect between children and their parents in Punjabi families where this is not a conversation that can be had easily. I agree with what you're saying that a lot of it's down to a lack of education, maybe even a lack of resources, because now there's a lot more that we have, access to than we did back then. Like even 10 years ago, it was a different scenario. How can we help for parents and children within the home to actually talk about this more and, you know, build that like get rid of that divide that exists and get rid of this stigma even in the home?
We need to stop pretending, Jasvir Kaur, that we are Sikhs and we are seeking. At Guru Sahib, Sahib Sri Guru Granth Sahib says, "Ve mukh hoye Ram te lagan janam viyog." For me, this is solution. This is mantra saying, once you are disconnected, then you will suffer. We will suffer. Once we will lose our sense of a direction, we will be lost. And is it happening to Punjabis? Yes, it is happening. And solution is a very simple: seeking help from Sri Guru Granth Sahib. Sri Guru Granth Sahib. If we call ourselves Sikhs, like for example, to my students, I say this: I am here for you. You're my family. I'm here to support you. Your problems are my problems. Please do not suffer in silence. So I will talk to you. I will find you answer. We will work together. I say this, right? But
Yes.
if they're not asking me, if they're not connecting with me, if they're not conversing with me, how can I help them? And similar sort of thing is with our community, which have labeled itself Sikhs. Now they have nothing to do with the Sikhi. I'll talk about it, I think, in next part, that how contradiction killed such a beautiful chapter and a revolutionary unit of humans. How these pretending, how this drama destroyed a legacy, and how can we protect? We can talk about it. But again, I don't want to assume. My upbringing in education, upbringing in a family atmosphere has been a very different. So I don't want to assume. So let's have a real talk, a real conversation. Real questions will lead us to real solutions.
Absolutely. And I don't think that I could have said it better myself. I think that there's a responsibility on both parts. It's sometimes really difficult, as somebody who's carrying any type of a trauma, to be able to speak about it. And if you don't feel that the person you're speaking to is going to listen, is going to try to offer understanding, or even just to be able to create a space where they can hold whatever you're going to say, that can make you pull back and keep the silence. So I think there's an equal responsibility within the household that if children want the parents to communicate with them, if parents want the children to communicate with them, it's about creating an environment of trust, mutual trust, where both feel comfortable sharing openly with each other. It's not something that I was fortunate enough to grow up around, and I think that many have that same scenario. But we can change that. We can improve it, and maybe this is something that we can try to implement within the household, within the home, to see that if we can open some positive and beautiful dialogue. I want to thank you, Yogiji, for a wonderful show today. This was really insightful to talk about mental health. We barely hit the tip of the iceberg. There's still so much that we want to talk about, but I appreciate you opening up the space And I hope that the viewers are going to send us in some more questions that we can begin addressing. But for today, I'd like to thank you, and I look forward to speaking to you again next week. Thank you, Ji.
Sat Karta.
Sat Karta.